Thank you, members of the Global Listening Center, for inviting me to speak on the importance of listening empathetically and on this important occasion. I am truly honored. In Alexander McCall Smith's novel, The Sunday Philosophy Club, the main character, Isabel Dalhousie, is full of empathy and human understanding. When Isabel witnesses the death of a young man who fell from the upper section of a concert hall in Edinburgh, Scotland, she said, upon seeing the young man on a stretcher, "To be so beautiful, and now the end." She closed her eyes. She felt raw inside, empty. This poor young man, loved by somebody, somewhere, whose world would end this evening when the cruel news was broached. All that love invested in a future that would not materialize ended in a second, in a fall from the gods. Imaginatively, Isabel entered the world of the young man's family. This is empathy in its purest form, a concrete articulation of empathy, making Isabel intimately aware of what should be the viewpoint of the young man's family upon discovering his body. Isabel's humaneness is sweet and embodies so well what this festival of listening is all about and why it matters hugely. As I note in my book, Empathy in the Global World, an Intercultural Perspective, empathy is learning what it is like to live by someone else's light. It is the ability to enter the world of the other imaginatively, cognitively, affectively, and behaviorally. It is the ability to use our knowledge, feelings, and actions for the greater good. To be an imaginative human being does not mean that one will become the other, because that is impossible. However, with a sufficient effort of imagination, we can learn what it is like to live by someone else's light. Seeing the world in this way keeps us from viewing human beings with whom we disagree as the repugnant other. McCall Smith's novels are full of exquisite, empathetic moments that move human beings to a greater, lovelier sense of ourselves. So today, at this beautiful festival of listening, we all should appreciate abundantly the inextricable link between empathy and listening. There's a special kind of consilience between the two skills, the precious kind of consilience that is sturdily crafted from a fusion of empathy and listening well. Increasingly, however, I fear that we are losing our gorgeous capacity for embracing each other kindly because of separation and division. The species of separation and division keeps us from listening empathetically to the other. Why? What has gone wrong? The issue is complex and various, but one gigantic reason is because elite classes and working classes are fenced inside separate geographic enclosures, and too often such enclosures, fencing in and fencing out behaviors, prevent face-to-face, up-close interpersonal interactions from occurring. Consider, for example, David Goodhart's comments on separation and division. In his book, Head, Hand, Heart, Why Intelligence is Over-Rewarded, Manual Workers Matter, and Caregivers Deserve More Respect, one finds there the idea of two kinds of people in the United States and Western democracies, the anywheres and the somewheres. The anywheres are educated, achieve identity from their career accomplishments, belong to the cognitive class, and can fit anywhere, as the designation signifies. The somewheres rely on ascribed identities, are less well-educated, value security and family, and are more rooted in place or group. They are easily discomforted by rapid change to those places and groups. Crucially, as Goodhart observes, both the anywhere and somewhere worldviews are decent and legitimate. But the value and practice of anywheres have come to dominate political and all mainstream parties. According to Goodhart, today we have a single common elite that has passed through the same funnel of higher education and then into the top quartile of professional and managerial occupations. At the very top, these national elites merge into a semi-global one that studies at the same universities, works at the same corporations and institutions, and consumes the same media. And this is most concerning for empathetic listening. Such separate geographic enclosures mean that some citizens are locked away and locked out, away from access to knowledge and certain jobs, which bring respect and influence. Let us then, at this festival of listening, find new and innovative ways to bring the somewheres and anywheres people together. One of the key benefits of empathetic listening is that it allows us to see the perspective of the 8 billion people on planet Earth, even though we cannot meet them individually. This is the compelling power and elegance of empathetic listening and why it matters. It matters because we do not need to experience something or people directly to understand them. Rather, we have powerful, extraordinary human imaginations, and we must use them gloriously and fittingly. This is what Rebecca Solnit means by the faraway nearby. And this imaginative faraway nearby explains, as Adam Hochschild details movingly in his book, Bury the Chains, where he talks about the slave trade in 19th century England, he reminds us that during the slave trade, people became outraged and stayed outraged for many years over someone else's rights, the rights of slaves. By using our amazing human imaginations and by drawing connections between the near and the distant, we can learn what it is like to live by someone else's light, by listening empathetically. The twin inseparable consilience between empathy and listening can be harnessed for the greater good and change the calculus of human behavior. Historically, civic engagement flourished when people across different classes came together pleasantly and participated in clubs and organizations. Harvard sociologist Robert Putnam, in his impressive book, Bowling Alone, revealed that there has been a decline in civic participation in clubs, churches, synagogues, mosques, and other forms of organizations. Recall that in 18th and 19th century England, all types of Britons met in public houses, later shortened to pub. Doctors, lawyers, farmers, teachers, nurses, shopkeepers, while cultivating conversations in communal spaces. Conversations are consequential, significant activities that foster empathy in places where we can listen humanely to each other, to our woes and sorrows, to our joys and pleasures, and to our hopes and dreams. Since we are separated and divided along class lines, it behooves us to cultivate the skills of listening empathetically. We need to shout about this passion, this edifying skill and concern from village rooftops, towns, hamlets, and cities. This is a listening empathetically imperative. If we are to live well in the world and flourish, we must listen to each other, cognitively, metaphysically, and behaviorally. Today, with so much chaos, wars, poverty, hatred, and grief in the world, there is a fierce sense of urgency about the compelling need for human beings to listen empathetically. At this critical juncture in human history, we need collective empathy. And we must listen empathetically such that we can get more innovative ideas, skills, and knowledge that we can pass on to succeeding generations. If we stop the flow of ideas because we do not listen empathetically to each other, then what are we going to pass on to new generations? How to demean others, how to name call, use invectives, vilify, and be mean-minded and smug about our own positionality, our own ideological stance. Through empathetic listening, we can understand the world better and create new, dazzling inventions to rival some of the extraordinary, past marvelous historical inventions, including the wheel, the printing press, fire, penicillin, compass, light bulbs, cell phones, computers, the internet, concrete and nails. Yes, nails and concrete. Try to imagine some of the wonderful buildings and structures worldwide that we have without the almighty nail and concrete or cement to hold them up or aloft. The Empire State Building, the Golden Gate Bridge, the Three Gorges Dam in China, and the 10-mile-long tunnel through a mountain in pristine Alpine Switzerland. My point is that listening empathetically leads to openness, and openness leads to innovations. We make progress when we listen to others. This impulse to create is beautifully concretized in the movie Hidden Figures. Recall the marvelous mathematical knowledge gleaned from the sweet band of African-American women who worked as human computers in the space industry to ensure successful launches into space. That happened in part because some kind, decent person listened empathetically to the plight of the women. Black women were given a chance to use their immense, boundless mathematical knowledge. Somebody listened to them, took them seriously, and we are all the better for it. Practically, there are many ways we can listen well, among them by recategorizing, which I leave you with today. Recategorization involves employing meaningfully the internal, cognitive, and metaphysical tools that morph into delightful, usable external outcomes in terms of what we do, when, and with what effect. This means that when we hear the voices of the other, whether via television, film, X, Meta, Instagram, TikTok, and other media sources, we can, with a sufficient effort of imagination, imagine what it is like to live by someone else's light. Imagine the other as a human being human being, to echo Dr. Malefi Asante. This helps to keep stereotypes at bay and opens a world of possibilities. Instead of seeing people as the repugnant other, let us listen more imaginatively and empathetically to them. Let us imagine people first and foremost as human beings, Imagine them shopping, sitting down to a lovely meal, or building castles on a calm, white, sandy beach in Jamaica. Allow the other's humanity to be visible and vivid. Then expect lovely things to happen that move us toward the collective good. At the end of On Anger, after advising his brother Novartis that life is too short to waste it on being angry, Seneca writes, "At any moment now, we shall spit forth this life of ours. In the meantime, while we still draw breath, while we still remain among human beings, let us cultivate humanity." Thank you.